In 2018, I began to recognize I had symptoms of schizophrenia. They started back in 2014 and they intensified 4 years later when I was 1 year into starting my own business, and it got really weird. I was paranoid, delusional, hallucinating, absolutely isolating myself, detaching from reality, and these have just gotten worse throughout the years. Schizophrenia is a very unknown, mysterious side effect of reality when certain individuals tap into frequencies and dimensions that others don't perceive. And for me, in 2014, when the universe started communicating with me, it was hard to translate due to what I had learned up until. We're taught that the world is very physical and tangible and material, that everything that you can see is what's real. And if you imagine it, it's not. And what was happening was in 2014, repeating numbers and songs on the radio and all types of strange communications were coming to me, and I couldn't identify where they were coming from. I could hear a thread. Like, imagine taking a thread and putting a bead on each part of the thread, and you're making like a string of a pretty little necklace. Pretty much one bead was the radio, one bead could be a bird in the air, another bead could be someone talking to me, another bead could be my own imagination or a bumper sticker. But in general, all these things were coming together and speaking to me. And I didn't really understand it when it first started. It was very exciting when it first began. You know, it was like I tapped into a superpower. I had access to some new frequency that was much more exciting than what I had been taught, which is just 3D, which is very box thinking. My irrational mind was activating, and my logical mind was, in general, most people, their logical mind, very linear. And we're taught that squares make sense, that following lines make sense, that papers and boxes. Because, you know, when these symptoms first started, that was really trippy for me. Boxes, squares in general, like we're in rooms. This would freak me out. Like, this would make paranoia, like seriously, was an overdrive. Just thinking about squares, how many squares are around, you know, like windows and rooms and then papers and everything they make into a box based upon measurements. And again, all these numbers were coming to me. So like repeating numbers and in general, just measuring. Think of everything is mathematical. And this was flooding my mind just very intensely. Like, why is everything measured? Why is everything so square? And I think that looking back in hindsight, what this was, it was my mind recognizing the code, recognizing the patterns of reality, because everything is measured. Everything is mathematical. This is some sort of a simulation, some sort of a coded reality that we perceive. Because the thing about schizophrenia and many other diagnosed illnesses or mental health issues, like depression and anxiety and stress and just in general, just hallucinating or being delirious or delusional, I think all stems from an imbalance of a rational and an irrational mind. We are beings that are full of mind and heart, right? We either love or we think. So we feel or we know, one of the two. You either learn something or you know something because you feel it, right? You love your favorite song, you love your child, or you know astrophysics, or you know how to be a teacher. You've been taught something or you feel it. That's what we are. You can smell something and know if you like it or not, you know, based on if it tastes right. These sensory, physical things. We have these receptors. We have sight. If you look and it's taste, if your eyes like it, or if they don't, right? We have these responses: the smell, taste, hearing, and touch. And for some reason, we just stop there. We're like, there's no more. That's our measurement of physical reality. And what happened to me was a sixth sense kicked in, and maybe a seventh and an eighth as well. And I just couldn't understand why, what, and how everything was connecting. So I started to see how if you were open, if you were willing to accept and believe and have faith in something outside of the box, outside of the square, that more was happening. And this is proven scientifically that within all of measurable reality, there's 100% of reality, 80% is dark matter. So all of this is dark matter, which is unknown. We don't really know why it's there, but it's 80% of all of the entire known reality. And then we have 20% of measurable reality, which is X-ray, gamma rays, everything we can see under a microscope, everything we can see with a satellite, and infrared rays, things that we can't even necessarily see with our eyes, but we know are there. Microwaves, these are measurable vibrations outside of our eyes' perception. And then we get down to 0.0035% of that 20%, which is what we can perceive with our eyes. And all of science that decides what we see as collectively agreed upon as real is within that 0.0035%. And my issue with this and what I've experienced is, if that's the case, if out of 100% of reality, we're still studying within a frequency band of 0.0035%. Don't quote me on these figures. The whole point of me breaking down these numbers is to explain to you that everything is unknown. So when someone says that something's really happening to them, it may be a possibility to believe them or to accept that they have more of a perception outside of what has been proven to be real. Disclaimer. I have my own personal experience and study on mental illness, on schizophrenia specifically, because not only did these symptoms, these delusions and hallucinations start coming in my life, in my own reality, I've watched my sister go through this her entire life. I've watched my sister be delusional her entire life. I couldn't understand because I was so logical and linear. I was taught, I learned through the way that we all did that it was supposed to be this way, but she would show me another way. She had this very irrational side to her that kind of made sense. And she would have hallucinations and delusions that she would try to get me to see, and I couldn't always see them, but there was a feeling, there was a knowing that there's something here, there's something solid here. It's not so fluid as if some of her downloads, that would come to her, that she would have, just were so profound that it's almost as if science we're not even there yet. What I began to notice was there's a lot more going on than what I could learn from the outside. So I began to withdraw. I began to disassociate and disconnect from people and reality, because what I was starting to experience, I couldn't relate. I couldn't go around and just communicate this to people without sounding like a batshit crazy lady. And I also didn't want to be crazy. I didn't want to feel these things. I wanted to be somewhat normal. I wanted to, I was cool with the magical side of it, with the fact that I could hear a falcon talking to me. That's pretty cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, that part I was really drawn to. I was really accepting of the spiritual side of it. That's what it is. It's what we call spiritual, whatever that is. Spirituality is our body that is non-physical, which is our consciousness, which is what connects us to everything, like our imagination, the cosmos, memories, dreams, visions, insights, thoughts, ideas. All these non-physical things is what we're connected to, just like we're here in 3D. We're here in the physical world as well. And I've always been creative. I've always been imaginative, and I began to really, really dive in. So what happened was, here was my logic. Before the symptoms, I was very logical, and my imagination was kind of low. I was trying to be a businesswoman. I was trying to have a career. I bought a house. I did all these things. I had all these achievements. All these things were happening. I bought a car. I was building my credit, doing all these really responsible adult things at a very young age. I was 24, bought my own house. And right after I bought a house that just so happened to be Unit 111, this is when all this started. In this house, I started to dive into research after some depression hit me. I was like blindsided by the fact that I kept having this really toxic connection, me included, in this relationship that I was in for many years. And I kept disassociating because I would be in this relationship that I loved to be in love. I wanted to feel love and passion and be connected, but there was cheating and fighting and all this nonsense that when we separated, I was so codependent and I was so clingy and attached that when we were separated, I didn't know what to do besides study, besides dive into my own research and figure out what was happening to me. As I did this, I began to learn a lot about science and synchronicities and spirituality, and how all of this connected to mental health and delusions and things like that. But I didn't have the awareness that I was going through what they label schizophrenia. This is all hindsight. I didn't have foresight that this was building in me, that I was not being able to do paperwork. And anytime something very practical was presented to me, like having to fill something out or apply or anything like that, I was so far from it that it's like I couldn't even get to it. It was just too difficult. It was like an obstacle course. And I would rather refuse to do it and just sit in isolation than even, it seemed like trying to give a kindergartner high school math. That's how difficult paperwork became to me. And I started luckily putting my bills in auto pay and things like that, so that way I never became late or whatever. And what happened was it kept coming, and it kept coming even stronger. Like, it never stopped, and it's still here. And by 2018, 4 years in, I started my own business, and this was a very stressful dynamic for me because I'm a very giving and fun and rebellious and free spirit type of person. I don't really do rules and regulations very well. So being a leader or a boss is awkward when the way that it's set up in our square and box society is you have to force, you have to enforce, you have to delegate, you have to decide, you have to, put aside the dreamy, fantasy, happy, joyful aspects, because most people that you're interacting with are in their logical minds. I really, really started to have serious hallucinations and delusions about this time, a year into my business, and it just got increasingly worse when I decided to try mushrooms, magic mushrooms. Because again, I'm like a high functioning addict at this point. I feel absolutely invincible. I smoked cigarettes, I smoked weed, I did all types of things that were not helping someone that's highly sensitive and aware, and what was activating inside of me, and it just was all, I was being hit by a bus of supernatural. And then I really started having to disconnect because I couldn't speak to anyone. That every single day I would walk outside and I felt like the sky was falling. I literally every single morning would wake up and drive somewhere where I could watch the sunrise, because I wasn't sure that the sun was going to come up. And then every night I would watch the sunset, because I wasn't sure that the world wasn't going to end every single night. The sky was digital. I mean, it's still digital to me, but the sky seemed very digital, very not real, as if it was a projection, as if these clouds were being pumped out of some machine and I'm stuck in some sort of cube game, like I was being forced here or something. And I couldn't possibly coexist with people that wanted to ask me, hey, what do you think of the weather, or the sports team that's going on this week? I was just like, the sports team? You want me to talk about a sports team? Let's talk about these clouds that look like they're from Mario. Like the grass, just everything. The trees started talking to me, and just everything. It just was so intense, and it was very difficult to just be normal. But I hit it so very well. I have a Taurus rising, and my Taurus rising projects a very earthy, balanced, vibey, put together, grounded chick, when in reality I'm a Scorpio moon and Aquarius rising. So I'm very airheaded and detached, along with a very deep and passionate emotional sign. I have all these depths to me that were hiding behind my projection. And as I learned this, again, this is all hindsight, I was really, really recognizing that I was losing my mind. I was losing my perceptions that I previously had, all the programs that I had been taught, everything that I believed and perceived to be reality, whether it was the news or politics in general, any type of social media. I could see through all of it. The zeros and ones were so clear. Like, I have had no need to be a part of it anymore, because it was not a part of me no longer. And when I took my first mushroom trip, which I got to make a whole video on, because wow, that was the most intense experience I've ever had to date. And this mushroom trip opened my eyes to the point where I got to see what I was going through and experiencing the supernatural reality that was presenting itself to me, that was becoming open, and I was becoming aware to perceive it, because we're 0.0035 is what we can see. And what is the measurement of what we can feel or taste? You know what I'm saying? What is clairaudience, which is being able to hear sounds that you can't really connect to a linear, logical, rational reason as to why you heard it. Or clairsentience, clairvoyance, being able to visualize either the future or even another time and space. You know what I'm saying? Where is that in this measurable data that we have? What is intuition? What is being able to sense outside of that 0.0035%? Could we at least say maybe some people can perceive 0.0038%? Is that possible? Can some people perceive 0.0042%? Like, what is the proof and data that we have measured based upon this? Because there's shamans and witch doctors and people all over the world experiencing supernatural, super and heightened senses, and we're being labeled mentally ill. And these labels are scary, because when I was growing up, my sister got thrown in a mental hospital, and that terrified me. And I thought, I never want to go to one of those places, because she was scared. And I was a little girl, and I didn't want to ever feel that kind of fear. And then what happens? I end up running into a mental health hospital one day, because the intensity of what was going on with me, like, really, I needed a break. I still kind of need this break, I think. But I needed a break from reality. Everyone's over here just perfect, and everyone just got it figured out. Everyone's just posting their pictures. Everyone's just chilling. And I'm over here having hallucinations and dreams and waking up to paranoid schizophrenic insights that creatures and beings are out to get me, or that just the thought that everything you were told isn't real is scary. And the problem with this stage, what I call stage 1, because this is where everyone stays. This is where, when you're labeled crazy, you go to a mental health place, and you expect to be diagnosed and treated, and you just want it to stop and go away, because that's what I wanted in that room. I wanted it to stop, and I wanted it to go away, which, again, a whole nother video, because that's a big story in itself. But I'm in this room in such fear of my own mind. I'm fearing my own thoughts and my own brain and my own ability to think clearly, and to have to go to work the next day and play pretend that I'm happy, that I'm not depressed, that I'm not paranoid, that I'm not in fear that the world's ending every day. You know, these really giant and huge problems, you know, that I'm experiencing, I can't express. I've learned that this stage 1 is where most people stay. And most people stay here because once you learn that, oh, you're crazy and you just need medication and treatment and comfort, and you need to talk to like minds, and you need to learn that you get validation, because you learn that, oh, I'm not alone. There's others going through this, and then you're slapped with a label, and then you move forward with your time. No, thank you. Because I recognize that this is a game, you know, this is a real game. This is we're in Jumanji, and pretty much you can decide to diddle daddle in that energy for as long as you choose. But I choose to go another level up. And what I learned was drugs, like even just cigarettes, smoking cigarettes or smoking weed, or, you know, whatever my addictions were, codependency, anything that I had attachments to is what was keeping me from rising above this energy. Because it was trying to elevate my consciousness, my mind. It was expanding. My mind was expanding itself and trying to give me visions and visuals and aspects of myself, doors into my own psyche that I could now open, keys, were being presented to me. And I could stay in delusions and fear and paranoia, or I could start to learn these new energies without fear, get more brave, get more bold, get more ambitious, to learn, what is this? What is happening to me? Not just sit in that frequency. So that's when me and meditation become best friends, because no one was helping me, and it's not their job. It's my job to heal my own toxins and my own issues, right? We're all really in this alone, even though we're all in this together at the same time, because the beginning and the end, it's all the same. But we are surely a unit, but we're also an individual. And I had to learn that as an individual, they want to pump people like me with medication. They want to say that I need to be medicated to stop my delusions or stop my paranoia or stop. I learned through meditation that you actually can stop whatever you'd like and then also turn on whatever you like. Because what's happening is a portal is opening for you. You're actually learning how to access higher states of consciousness. You're learning how to be more aware of reality, how to perceive more of what's going on around you, being more aware of yourself, being the observer of your life. You are, instead of becoming a reactive and a defensive or just trying to fit the mold, you learn how to make your own, how to create your own mold, how to go with the flow, how to not react to certain energies, and how to not fear things. Because if I would have stayed in a state of paranoia and taken medication and decided that just label me schizophrenic because I'm delusional, I hallucinate, and I'm just, you know what I'm saying, going to bed with a boogeyman under my bed. Like, why? You know what I'm saying? Like, let's say there's a boogeyman under my bed.
Boo.
What does he want? Like, maybe there's a conversation we need to have, because who's to say that this isn't just a dimensional barrier between me and another entity trying to communicate? Like, there's so many ideas around what mental illness, schizophrenia is. Rather than labeling it and stopping there, we really need to expand and see that I have personally my own personal journey. I can't attest for everyone. I don't know what everyone's going through, but I know someone can relate to this. When you feel fear, when you feel paranoia, when you feel delusions, why do you think they're there? That's a good question to ask yourself, because I've learned that the only thing to fear is your own mind. That, like, really, in this reality, the only thing to fear is your own mind. Because even death, think about everything that dies turns, the energy of death, like, it turns into something else. So it's actually birth. Death and birth are like one and the same. So death is even a new beginning, an experience. Everything is knowledge, learning, and experience, dark and light. Like, you can go through some of the darkest learning experiences and come out of it with so much knowledge and wisdom to share with those and turn it into light. And it's like, when we sit here and decide fear and paranoia and, that's actually a resistance to growth. It's a resistance to change. It's a resistance to being brave and actually facing your fears, looking fear in the eye and saying, why are you so scary? What is it about you that limits me? Why do I even believe that there's a limit to what I'm capable of? That's a really important question to ask yourself. Do you really think that a label, a word, a diagnosis, a symptom, or a medication is the answer or the solution to your biochemistry, your neurons, your makeup. Like, why are we going through these energies is a really important question that I feel like people can start asking themselves. When I was so clogged up with all these energies, that's when I was freaking out. That's when I couldn't get right. I couldn't find my balance. I couldn't find my center. And I'm trying to help people to see that, all these videos that I make, all these stories that I share is because I know someone out there is waking up every day and thinking the world is going to end because they're looking up in the sky and they're recognizing that we're in some sort of virtual reality and the trees may be speaking, or maybe they're seeing demons. I'm not sure. But I do want you to know that there is nothing to fear but yourself. Your mind is capable of so much. And if we were taught to just chill and meditate and learn how to find our center, how to find our balance, we would learn how not to fall off. We would be able to, I'm seeing the Aurora borealis, I can't say it correctly, the snake eating its own tail. We would learn that, this is just the circle of life. This is a part of ascension, and our minds, our consciousness, the solar system, we're all connected, and everything is being activated for this new energy that we're entering. This is a new time. This is a new generation, a new era. And with everything we've learned up until this point, we take that with us and expand. We don't get smaller. We don't stay stagnant. We get higher or bigger, right? It's an expansion and a contraction, an expansion and a contraction. And we're learning. That's the most beautiful thing of it all. Don't stop learning. Don't stay in any energy. Don't say, I am this label. Because tomorrow, what if you learn something that completely contradicts that energy? Do you want to be honest with yourself and honest with everyone else and be able to say, I was wrong. Yesterday I believed this, and today I believe this. Today I'm here. I don't want people to think that they have to stay there. And I do want people to know that drugs make it worse. Of course, drugs keep you in the lower vibrations, or they don't teach you how to maneuver. They don't teach you that here's the energy, do something with it. It just takes you straight there and you're just like, whoa, there's so much going on, And it's like, you got to learn that you can get there without the drugs by meditating. It's a more hardworking, practical, discipline way to get there. It's not easy and instant, right? But it is. Once you practice it, once you dedicate yourself a little bit to yourself, give yourself that time that you need, that clarity, that openness, you do have the ability to get there. You do have the access to what you tap into, what you're just those profound downloads and thoughts and clarity. You're just like, what? I can just do this. Like, I'm gonna be this. Like, you just have these amazing moments that you can also have sober. So that's where I'm gonna leave this. I love you guys. I love you very much. I love myself. And I really hope that I can help somebody today, because that went everywhere, and I appreciate you. I just really do.